Great. So the activity is based on the prompt that you will see under one. So you can just read it, take your time to process it, and write about it. Should I read it aloud? Okay. Okay. Try to think of a time when you felt a strong bond with someone in your life. Choose a specific example of an experience you had with this person when you felt especially close and connected. This could be a time you had a meaningful conversation, gave or received support, experienced a great loss or success together, or witnessed a historic moment together. Once you have thought of a specific example, write a short paragraph about what happened. It will be personal. It will be voluntarily shareable later, if you want to. Not suddenly, a sustained period of time. It could be 1 hour long conversation where there was a very good dynamic, good this thing. No, you could have had. You could have had. Moment of closeness is independent of the person or whether you had a very good relationship with them before or after. It's just a moment of closeness.
If somebody doesn't want to write it on the paper, they feel free to write it on phone. I'm going to write it on my phone because
Yeah.
it's easier for me.
Cool. Yeah. Works. Makes sense. Yeah. Sure. Uh, 1 more minute. Yeah. 1 more minute. Okay, great. So hopefully you have thought about a moment of closeness. You've written a little bit more about it. So that's just a descriptive, journalistic sort of thing. Next, we're going to get into uh, the why do you think you felt that moment of closeness. So sort of try to abstract what that. Why do you think you felt that? So note the ways in which this experience made you feel close and connected to the other person. Why do you think you felt this moment of closeness? 1 more minute. Okay, great. So, is there any bold person in the room who would like to share that moment of closeness that we can just have a discussion around uh, to see, to explore? Sure.
So we shared similar problems in life, looking for solutions, sort of read forums we visited, uh, sort of, yeah. So that was the moment of closeness I felt with the person. We shared similar articles. They got, I got them, they got me, and with my situation, and vice versa.
Any? Do you have any specific reasons as to why you thought that you felt that dynamic?
So I think the reason why I felt closeness because uh, I thought like they're very similar in nature. There's no shame. There's no boundary. I can tell that anything. So probably that's why.
Good, great, thanks. Yeah.
I don't know why I felt close to the person I wrote it about. Because I just felt I'm my best self in that particular space.
Okay, that's
And
good.
we took many risks together and had really fun and positive outcome of taking these risks. A lot of my current passions are also driven through a lot of my experiences with them.
Okay.
So, flow, comfort, and feeling I'm a better person.
Nice.
Made it to
Got it. Perfect. Nice.
I think
Nice.
the third one is art home. Yeah, art home feeling. The art home feeling.
The art home feeling. Okay, that's an interesting phrase. Okay, cool. Nice. Nice. Anybody else would like to go?
So I went on a trek with a friend of mine in
Okay.
2023.
Nice.
So we reached the top, and the sun was just setting, so that you get those evening sky views. And yeah, we just looked up and we started having a casual conversation about life and um, how did the cosmos come to be as it is today, and complexity, entropy, thermodynamics. So that went really deep and meaningful, and we reached a lot of similar conclusions, and there are a few phrases which still stick out to me from that. So it went on for 2 hours, maybe from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., something like that. And the reason why it was different from others, or why it wasn't, is because usually when I'm having these conversations, in fact, I must have had one in the last 72 hours. So usually you drift away from basic physics and established laws of physics, and you get more into the realm of spirituality and pseudoscience and the likes of it. But here it was really grounded in what do we actually know, and how do we derive the current state of the cosmos as it is from what we know. So that's what was particularly noteworthy for me.
Interesting. That's amazing. That's nice. Of course, not everybody needs to go, but if you would like to share, you can share. Cool. Great. So we'll come back to all of this a bit later. I will first give a boring monologue to make you all sleep. So to start with, the North Star of all of the reason why this talk came up, or some of the things that I try to do, is the fact that to build a better understanding of the systems, ideas, and people means ourselves and others around us, a better understanding leads to a better engagement, which leads to a better outcome. A better understanding starts with better self-awareness. So to give this is not related to relationships or anything, but just to give a context of what better understanding means is, so for example, if a friend comes and tells you, hey, check out this AI-powered news app, it's really cool. Why don't you use it? It seems that person does not exactly understand what an AI-powered news app really means. An AI-powered news app means it's powered by AI, and AI is powered by the recommendations or the content that you like and dislike. So when you put like and dislike in the context of news, you're only getting the side of the story that you like, that fills your ego, that fills your bias, and hence you live in your own comfortable world, which is sort of very not the best way to learn about life, to learn about what's going on in the world around you through just one perspective without understanding the other side of the coin. So if he would have understood that an AI-powered news app does not really make a lot of sense, then he would basically not engage it to the complete extent. He might use it for sports or specific niche in which an AI likes and dislikes can work out, and then that would lead to a better outcome in the sense that he would stop following AI-powered related news in general, current affairs, geopolitics, all of that. So then he would not be too biased or bigoted in his own world. So I just wanted to give that context, if that makes sense, of what understanding, engagement, and outcome means. That flow makes sense.
You're saying that when I shared the AI news app with the person, I didn't have an understanding of what the app actually means. I just got excited about something very superficial manner, and I started sharing it with my close friends or something. So, but if I add a clear understanding, is that what you're kind of saying? The understanding is that me having a clearer understanding of what I'm sharing with others. Is that what?
Understanding not only but not only the sharing part, understanding the content. The sharing is just a story. The part about understanding the AI news app that you're using for yourself.
Okay.
So that's that. So that's the North Star that I'm trying to aim at. And so the rest of the talk. So I would like to also give a disclaimer that this is personal. This was something that came up in my mind. It might be 100% wrong. It might be right. It might be wrong. It might be whatever. It's fine. Of course, I'm testing this out with all of you. I would love to hear your thoughts, opinions, feedback of whether what we're going to talk about makes sense. Because it's not about me. It's not about the idea. So I'm not going to have any ego if you're going to say this doesn't make sense. Because the North Star here is to build a better understanding. So as long as we reach that, that makes sense. So feel free to openly give feedback later on. Okay, so unfortunately there are no slides. You guys would have to make do with my voice. So yeah. No, not for now. Later. Yes. So this thought process sort of came about to me when I was writing a more long form article about uh, dating, relationships, and all of that, the things that I've seen around me. And then I, just for context, I graduated in 2023, not too far back, and I had a very interesting time seeing how people interact, especially in a city like Bangalore, where different people from all over the world comes, the way that they interact with people, what type of inner desires they project on people. We talked a lot about projection as well and stuff like that. So in that moment, I sort of saw some specific patterns of how people thought, behave, felt, etc. So that led me to the current model that we're going to talk about. So that's that. How many of you are very familiar with this social media phrase called tribalism? Tribalism. Yep, makes sense. Yeah. So, I'm not sure in which context that we are all, just to be on the same page. Tribalism is sort of where like people sort of use these very small niche snippets of things. Like, I'm gonna buy this particular brand because it tells I can relate it for this specific reason, and I'm going to use it in this everyday life. Or I can have a very random niche preference, like I am the sort of guy who likes to eat pancakes on Sundays, for example. So I'm sort of, so where people sort of try to differentiate themselves in their expression, in their likes, in their dislikes, in their emotions, in the things that they eat, in the places that they go, in the people that they meet. They're sort of having these extremely tribalized niche preferences all across the board. And what people are sort of doing that is that they're bringing that model and projecting that on people. Perhaps to take a pause and just to understand probably why people do that, uh, that mental muscle of sticking to niche preferences probably again comes from things like social media, algorithms, AI, and stuff like that. So, when I talk to teachers, I talk to parents, they go, especially kids, they sort of go like, if I don't get what I want, they get really angry. They get really this thing because they're so used to a social media world, or not just social media, or a technology or an internet world where everything is tailored exactly to their preferences. It could be the games they play, the videos that they watch, anything and everything. So now they're so used to getting what they want, be it subconscious or conscious, they start wanting that from people. I want exactly this behavior from my friend. I want this, I want that, I want that. So when I spoke to these people to try to test this theory out in a different manner, what people were sort of trying to tell me is that, oh, this couple online, this relationship online, this friendship here and there, they're so picture perfect. I want that. I want this. They synchronize exactly and everything like that. So they're taking that very idealistic view and adopting it for themselves, which is again not in the best interest. So to tangify what I'm trying to say, people are having these sort of mental models and frameworks, and when they go through life, let's say you are like a square, and as and when you have some sort of experiences, each time a specific, there's a cut or a jag, not negative or positive, there's a push, there's a force, and then that part of the square becomes a little bit bent, and then the other part of it gets a little bit cut, and so on and so forth. You keep going through life, and at the end of the day, you have this very intricately formed polygon. In mathematics, we call it polygon, which is a random shape. It has all sorts of random cuts and jabs and unique, what you call it, form and shape. what I see is in relationships, people want other people to fit the shape exactly as they want it, exactly in that perfect manner, which does not happen all the time, of course. And then the sharp edges that have been made, sharp edges means the things that you're extremely adamant about. Even if you have a good relationship with somebody, you sort of cut through that relationship and it's more harmful just because you were adamant on that. And sometimes other people are having these sharp edges and you're having a soft edges and it cuts through you. And you allow it to cut through you, even though that soft edge should have been something that you should have hardened more on. It's your principles, it's your values, it's something that you don't sell, but somehow you just let it pass. So that's what I wanted to get at. So I think we can show the image now. Of course, what I'm saying probably is not making sense and it's too abstract, but I hope this can make a little bit more sense. So let's say long back, we were this simple, nice, sweet shape. Um, that's okay. So yeah.
I think I've seen something like what you're talking about, like a jigsaw piece, like, you know, like a person who's with a jigsaw piece, like trying to meet another person who manages the jigsaw as a piece, something like that, right?
Sort of. I have not.
Wait, but why article on this? Yeah. No, that's like a very popular comic.
Maybe.
I think one of I did in a blog post basically exactly what it is.
Oh, interesting.
Like, my life is like a puzzle.
Ah.
I'm a puzzle piece, and then I'm looking for this particular person to fit exactly into that.
Ah, interesting. That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, at the starting we were this n equal to 6, irregularity equals 0, spike in x equal to 0, simple humble shape. But of course, we're humans, we're living in the 21st century, we are very mentally, culturally evolved to have preferences, opinions, likes, dislikes. We are not, living 200 years ago where we were simple-minded, go to work, go to school, come back, be in a village, go to war, etc. We are having more opinions, more likes, dislikes. So as time evolves, a shape sort of gets a bit more complex. So you can see irregularity equals 0.8, spikiness equals 0.5. So slowly and so on and so forth, eventually we come to a very random, unique shape like this, where you've got all sorts of irregularity, all sorts of spikiness.
Quick question: Is that like a formal parameter or?
No, it's not a formal parameter. I got extremely lucky. Like I had these, so that's all right. Yeah. So I saw this specific events play out in office between multiple relationships and friends and couples and everything, and I sort of saw each other sort of just cutting, jabbing, and doing all sorts, trying to make the other person fit. Then they would come and talk to me. Someone else would cry to me. Someone would say something. No, this person that, this person that. That's when this mental model came up. And then when I went online to see irregularity shapes, just to put it in my article, I found it and I put it. So that's all.
The spikiness means what exactly? I mean, I think in this shape, what is the spikiness thing that is 0 and 0.5 and 0.7? I understand the.
I didn't generate this image. I did not put these parameters. So yeah, it's just mathematics. This is actually from a mathematics blog. They were talking about something totally different, and I just copied it.
Okay, so but we should just pay attention to the kind of shape.
Yes. Yes.
And not look at the
Not look at the.
numbers.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean, we can get into philosophical way. What is spikiness? What is irregularity? All of that we can do, but that's a different thing. Yeah. That's how the dots are connected, right? How smooth the dots are connected.
Like there is certain smooth curves, and you can see that the irregularity is like 1,
ratio or whatever it is, and the thing is 0.7, which has like certain sharp points
Right.
at two particular points. So like I think of ratios and all of that, like there's more smoothness in that like shape than like spikiness.
Okay, I noticed smoothness in the third one also. First, second from the left, from the top left.
The right is equal to 6.
Yeah, isn't there some smoothness there? But irregularity.
Like could also be like a pixelated image. I think. Yeah.
Specific thing is being tracking. How
So yeah, basically in short, when when humans are like this sort of polygon, thanks to all the hyper connected world that we're living in, all the niche preferences, opinions that we're having, we're sort of trying to have people fit in this shape around us, which is extremely hard. And at the same time, while we move through life, we sometimes cut other other shapes as well, which is sort of harmful. It sort of undermines the relationships that you were having. So instead of being too rigid on specific parameters, specific preferences or opinions that you're having, you can sort of smoothen out this edge, smoothen out this thing, and allow people to come through you, connect with you, and be a part of your polygon, of the larger polygon. But there are, of course, some specific times where you need to keep your sharp edge, like your personal opinions, personal values, preferences. I'm not going to steal, or I'm not going to lie, I will be honest, whatever, etc. So that needs to be there. If somebody else is trying to sand it out or make that smooth and you want to give that up, that's ideally not the best thing to do. So that's like the general metaphor. These are like the mental polygons metaphor of what we're trying to talk about. Of course, there is one more activity that we're going to quickly do, and then we'll probably have a discussion and get into slightly a little bit more things. But before we get into that, does anybody have anything? Is it even making sense? Is it like any rough? What's the room feeling?
Also taking from your blog. We were an easier puzzle earlier. But the puzzle has become so complex that it's hard to find the space where I can fit it. Or even if other pieces have to just come and join with me. I'm not able to build those relationships because my needs are being met there. I'm too rigid and too complex to be really fitting it up. Token kind of thing.
Yep. One idea that is coming to me when you say that is basically the constraint that the environment was putting us under was sort of making sure that the shapes stay constant. Previously, there were some rules and regulations that were harshly enforced on tribal societies and whatnot to keep the harmony going, and there was not a lot of freedom. With this new world of capitalism and all industrialization and all that, we are allowing more freedom at the cost of this sharpness that is happening. That is something that is interesting to observe. Because obviously there's a trade-off there. You want freedom also, but then becoming more and more selfish and wanting things away.
That's a good analogy. That's a good one. Yeah.
We call it the jagged edge of this puzzle.
Jagged
Edge of this puzzle. It's like very hard to find something that fit into like a very jagged spider.
Right. Exactly.
I think when they're talking about things like puzzle pieces, it almost feels like, okay, you're looking for maybe one person who's going to fit in perfect. And I think a few years back, I kind of made this pact with myself that's like, okay, no one person is going to fit all of it. So you have to have multiple people with whom you have different kinds of fit with respect to the jaggedness. So because that's a big, I think, that individuality that we're able to bring now is differences and even like our values and so on. So have a good one.
Yeah,
That's the
that's exactly it. Life is a puzzle and no one is
True.
These cutouts are part of a larger cardboard piece. So in the end, the cardboard is still a singular piece. It's just different cutouts from different people.
That's a positive assumption. that the cardboard is the same, but yes, that's a good thing. Yeah.
this sharp thing going.
Yep.
And
Yep.
making you feel like, okay, you said you're successful and all that shit, right? So, I mean, I don't know how to think about that in a
No, but if you look at like your primary partner, as it has to be the person, like, so it can't be someone who will completely sort out that jagged side of you. Right? The jaggedness is kind of the side of you that it has to fit in. Yeah. So like if you look at the jagged side of your piece as your core values or your principles and your differences, you can't just erase that. Okay.
Yeah.
The other sides can be smoother, right? Like when it comes to the family partner or like certain jaggedness fitting is probably there.
Other people who start with fit or they solve it. I mean, it could just like for example, let's say if somebody is jagged, that will last us. And maybe they're and they're very keen about it. But maybe their partner doesn't.
No, maybe that's not on your side of the board. Like the sports thing can fit in with some of the like, let's say your partner preferences side of the puzzle is the jaggedness has to fit with what I say.
I think with this, with more freedom and lesser constraints, which are pushing it to be in a specific shape, but also become very self-sufficient. Like I might not need a bigger community for me to stay around because I enjoy my company more than my grandfather's relationship. So they were in that kind of state. So right now, even if I have multiple friends, I don't really need that in a particular arrangement which satisfies all my needs. I am okay with who I am. These are good to have pieces and needs which are met.
But don't you think it's like the whole picture needs to come together?
So it really involves and other systems. My point is you are the whole picture.
Oh, you're the one.
Not the whole picture. And other things are good to have accessories which will not use.
I feel like you're always with the jagged and with the small. And when other people come into your life, either the jagged pieces fit or they don't clash with each other as part of your core identity or your core values. And the smooth parts are very flexible. So that's something you can explore, learn with each other, or it might be even something you discover you really like.
Also, I think you add some texture into this. With the jagged, it is something that you're absolutely unable to bend on. And like things you're okay with like changing it is more soft and like moldable into another shape. Instead of thinking of them like 2D shapes, you just start thinking of like a 3D like shape rather than just 2D shape. Or shape.
Something that comes to mind when you're sharing us thinking about like how when you meet another person as well, like the polygon that you are also keeps evolving. It doesn't stay stagnant, right? So when you meet someone that kind of fulfills a very core need, touches a very tender part inside of you, like you do start to smoothen out a little bit, and they start to, or their polygon, that side, also tends to change a little bit. And connected to what you were saying, even if there's somebody that may require more space, the need that they have actually, that they may not have many needs in terms of things that other people could necessarily fulfill, but a way that I think a different polygon could come in and fit in. There is even, for example, having relatives or family members or a roommate that's allowing you that space, not interfering, right? So maybe that's one need where like one of those pieces, the jagged pieces, the spikiness or whatever, could kind of fit into somebody just allowing you the space to just be able to learn something or take that.
But what can we go
Yep.
to the activity now?
Yes.
So I think you can also look at it as expansive. The more pieces there are, more expansive. Just like
If we have a single picture, but a gallery can do.
yeah,
Right.
Great. So we will be coming back to the discussion part in a moment. But now let's do an inverse sort of reflection. This is a moment of friction. and it does not necessarily have to be with the same person that you thought about in the first activity. It could be someone totally different. Try to think of a time when you normally had a good relationship or positive feelings towards someone, but in a specific moment you felt disconnected, uneasy, or hesitant towards them. Please note that you felt disconnected, uneasy, or hesitant toward them, not because of something that they did. Maybe something that they are, or something more deeper, but not necessarily something that they made you angry. But it's something more personal, like you felt hesitant towards because maybe does it say something about you? That's the question that we'll be exploring. This could be a time when you didn't feel like engaging with them, didn't give them your full attention, felt discomfort in their presence, questioned the connection you usually shared, or you feel like you didn't want them in that moment. It could be in a group, it could be in a particular context, particular setting, etc. Once you've thought of a specific example, write a short paragraph about what happened. In particular, consider what was going on in that moment that made you feel less open or less connected than usual. So, yeah.
So you said it shouldn't be something they do outside.
Yeah, you shouldn't feel hesitant towards them because of something that they did.
Okay.
So we're not talking about something like they shouted at you and stuff like that. That's a different thing. This is where you personally had some sort of moment where you, from your side, felt hesitant.
It was not external, it was more internal.
More internal, exactly.
But can it be like there was their behavior and not violent there? But something was going on because of this. Or are they completely normal the way they have always been with us? Just me who changed internally to
In general, in certain contexts and stuff, they might have some behavior that might have made you act like in a specific way in the moment. But in the moment, their behavior was completely normal in the moment.
Maybe it's something like if you know the other person doesn't like drinking and you get drunk and then you feel like uncomfortable hanging out with someone who you know that doesn't like drinking and you're drunk, right? Maybe something like that.
Something like that, but in a more non-credit sort of thing. So, for example, here you're telling that, oh, the person doesn't like to drink, so I'm not going to invite them. So, basically doing something good, right? You're not forcing them to come. So that is a different thing. This is a bit different. Moment of friction is where you personally didn't feel very, for example, you're hanging out in a group and you don't want to invite a friend, for example, because maybe they're not cool enough to be part of your friend group, for example. It could be, I didn't want to give any reference point, but since we were talking, so
No, I think they're useful.
they're useful. Because I wanted to keep it extremely open.
But
So,
then it becomes like confusion.
okay.
This is one problem. Like what, like as if since the questions are happening, I felt like the example is giving clarity.
Okay.
This one
Okay.
was-
Got it. I.
One more example
Yeah.
can you give? Like the cool friend thing I understood from you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any example that comes to mind? Just so that I'm understanding this. Because in a way I need to be very self-reflective in order to not feel that they did something.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like how it's like later maybe once I've done a lot of self-reflection I'll figure out they were normal but without that self-reflection usually is external. It feels like we triggered it and then I started feeling disconnected. There's a cause and effect sort of thing that happens. But you're
Yes.
saying
Maybe it's like you order pizza, you don't want to share it, but you see that you're coming and everybody's coming.
In a way, yes, in a way.
I have something that comes to mind. Let me know if that qualifies. in this.
Okay.
So maybe what you're saying, you probably shouldn't. Huh?
can you repeat what you said?
Yeah. So I was just asking Luqman to let me know from an example that I'm coming up with whether that qualifies.
Okay.
So what I'm getting is like you're in a conversation with someone starts screaming at you, then that cannot be an example that we're using here.
Yes.
But for example, you're coming home and say your partner is with you and you're really exhausted, but they go to grab a glass of water, but they just grab one, come sit down, start drinking. So could that be like an example? Because it's not directly like attacking or causing hurt, but maybe an inaction of some sort that triggered something within us. Would that qualify?
Yes, that perfectly qualifies. So their indifference sort of made you feel a little bit disconnected,
Okay.
right? That's what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Like I guess.
Yeah, because I think the question is that inevitably when you think of situations, there's always some trigger.
Mm.
Even if the intention to harm does not exist,
there will be some change in the environment around you that may either trigger a memory or something changes inside of you as a result of that trigger. So I guess the questions are around should there necessarily be no trigger at all?
Oh, so uh, what you described is perfectly in the boundary of what we're discussing, and the trigger should not be that particular person in that particular moment. The trigger can be in general the context. It could be that something that the person did or say beforehand as well. So that can also happen. But in that moment, not. No, not exactly you're the bad guy. In general, you have a certain opinion, a certain thing towards that person, but in that moment, you're not going to take that person into consideration because of some general idea or image that you have about them.
So you're the bad guy, right? That is what.
So you can
It could be.
it can be guilt driven also. If I have wronged somebody and I don't want to meet them because I'm feeling guilty.
It's not. It shouldn't be guilt driven. It's that you took a particular choice or an opinion to engage with that person in that moment from your side. So it's not necessarily guilt. Guilt is a bit more of a.
Luqman, and unfortunately, I have to find it the time.
Okay.
Yeah, we're basically out of time right now.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
we have a talk for an initial lightning talk,
Got it.
coffee break,
Got it.
and then yeah, I was thinking of the talk in SRS and sense making.
Got it.
So, can we wrap it up in like a few minutes?
Sure. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable like pushing you like that. But
I get it. No.
I want to finish the talks at least by
100%.
7 p.m.
Makes sense.
And have a small break.
Got it. Makes sense. Sure. So yeah, just take a couple of moments to discuss a moment of friction at this point, broadly defined. So yeah, take a couple of moments for that. So yeah, due to a lack of time, I'll probably give my where I'm coming from and a personal example or something. So again, due to lack of time, I'll just read it out. So please don't think a robot is speaking out. That's how it is. So I felt very connected with person A who told me about a really deep and personal time during her college days when she had to deal with a lot of false rumors and toxicity. About how it all affected her mental health, how she battled to keep sane when her honor and respect was being attacked every day just for the selfish gain of a select few. The moment was also quite emotional as her eyes were watery when describing it, which made my eyes moist as well. So that's the description. The abstraction of this would be so to firstly have someone trust you enough and be vulnerable with you, that is in itself a very unique feeling for which I don't have a word for. So this is my moment of closeness. So this is one thing. Yeah. The reason why I felt this moment of closeness was because somebody trusted me and was very vulnerable, shared something very deep and personal. Secondly, it made me feel and close and connected because the same fear and vulnerability I might have had subconsciously to face such a personal attack based on completely false accusations has been lived and gone through by someone else. So it's just like the whole idea of this specific thing that you had, and now suddenly, in a moment, you're seeing that somebody else has gone through it. It is also because when I was in college, I heard about something similar from some seniors, and it shook me like that was. So that's probably why that fear came to me when I was in my starting college days, and now when I graduated, when I interacted with this person, it came alive. So that moment of connection was there. So if I were to reflect on this, what this tells me is that when someone has gone through a phase or a roller coaster of emotions in a similar boundary that I can relate with, and then we have a genuine, meaningful conversation about it, then it makes me feel connected. So that's just one simple small example for now. For a moment of friction, I felt a moment of friction when I had to decide between person A and person B to have lunch with. I have a much more closer and personal rapport with A. He or she gets me more. But in general, I have a more easy rapport with B. At that moment, I felt hesitant to include person A to join us. And at the end, I'm feeling less connected. And even though if I choose to go out lunch with this person B, with the whole group, I'm feeling less connected with this group overall, as although I did have an easy time, I didn't feel personally seen by them, or I didn't feel personally connected with them, but I enjoyed them. And the abstraction of this would be, I might have felt this because person A might not be considered the classic definition of cool to hang out with, might not be polished or not look, talk, act, or be like us in the ways we might want, be it language, speaking, mannerisms, character, etc. Hence, I might have not wanted their presence as they might not fit in the classical way here. It might also be that hanging out with person B is much more chiller and easygoing. I don't have to put in that much effort or mental or emotional attention. Of course, additionally, I didn't feel connected with anyone because I didn't have those conversations or connections that I have with person A. As those topics are very mundane, these topics are very personal. So the reflection is, what this tells me is that I sometimes prioritize based on what the group might consider as cool, which leads me to not including someone who is outside of the group. And then he or she realizes that I'm not including them, and then that leads to a rupture or a fraction in the relationship. So that's one thing. So to reflect on the reflections, I might be imposing my need or want to fit in based on my rigid ideas of what cool or easygoing looks like. On the other hand, I have another need where I feel moments of closeness with people who I have genuine connections or conversations with, where I feel understood, where they give me the gift of understanding. So to balance all of this, I shouldn't impose my want to have an easygoing time, which is personal and not relationship related. I should not impose this like a jagged edge at the cost of a connection I want and I value. So it's not just about balance, it's about whom or what I want to prioritize as well. So I can smoothen out my moment of frictions by having these honest conversations with multiple groups. I can tell group B about so and so things. I can tell group A about certain things and sort of bring the smooth edges to a bit more jagged. Like I want to have good conversations. You guys are like talking bad about people and stuff like that. I don't feel connected. And with this person, maybe I can say that maybe I give too much attention. I would like you to listen a bit more about this and have an equal attention give and take. So yeah, I know that the examples that I gave is very. It could be looked at as very simple and stuff like that. I have another. I have specific set of examples, things that I've seen in office and stuff that people are very disrespectful towards their partners and their so-called friends, and they're just very smooth with that. And it's very unsustainable because when you keep cutting, at some point of time you bleed. So I can obviously talk about that one-on-one. It's hard to contextualize that in a talk or a workshop like this. But the conclusion of all this, I just want to give just 10 seconds more, is that um, there are these frameworks or these models where you go to workshops, right? Where they give you these fancy self-works, models, inner work stuff, which might not work out in that moment at every time. So the point of that entire polygon model is that when you're in the moment and when you're feeling something, when you're acting out something, suddenly the polygons things, it has captured your imagination. It's very easy for anybody and everybody to think about, okay, am I being too jagged here? Am I being too soft here? And that's like the one-liner thing. So nothing too fancy, nothing too academic, nothing too, this thing. We can make it more polished, the model and framework, but it's just a useful way for people to just sort of flash that in their mind in that particular moment and sort of take a step back and uh, uh, form their own polygons in a better manner. But yeah, that I don't know if it makes sense. Would love to chat on this in the break. Thanks.
We'll do coffee now, and if you have any questions, you can ask Luqman. Coffee, tea, whoever wants black tea can make their own black tea. Otherwise, we have coffee inside, so filter coffee. Sugar without sugar, available.